Man, we've been travel hacking all the time. It's just that now we need to take that concept of packing sandwiches in the car in the road trip to, yeah, let me go save me some $1,000 up to fly business class. That's the idea.
Welcome to LatinX Can, a podcast showcasing Latinx professionals who turn their dreams into realities. I'm your host, La Doctora Jenire Flores Delgado, and today I'm here with Laurie and Danny Navarro, a couple of Latinx professionals travel hacking their way around the world and reclaiming the first in first-class flights, lounges, and top-tier hotels. And they're here to tell you, sí se puede, my friends, sí se puede. Laurie and Danny Navarro, welcome to Latinx Can.
Muchas gracias por the invite.
Thanks for having us.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I've been seeing you guys' Instagram posts and reels for a long time now. And every time you're out there traveling, I'm like, I want to be with them. So I'm excited to have you here.
No, thank you. And I know we had chatted before about my friend Todd from UVA. When I showed him that, we were doing this page, he was like, wait a minute, I know her. Like, how do y'all got to be together? And then you said the same thing. So it was just really funny to see how small this world really is.
I know. That was really crazy. And it was just like, I saw him walking on one of your videos and I was like, wait, I know that guy.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. I love that. And we'll have to send this to Ty because he's the one who made it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's get started with learning a little bit about you guys' stories and where your stories begin as individuals first. So let's start with Laurie and then we'll go to Danny.
Sure. So I am originally from Washington State. I grew up near Yakima Valley. My dad was in construction, so we traveled all along the West Coast. And my parents came to the United States when they were very young. My abuelo was part of the Bracero program, and so that helped really bring along the rest of the familia over. When we settled down, we were picking asparagus first thing in the morning before going to school. Yeah. I remember most of my summers while I was in high school, I wasn't in internship programs. I was instead working in the warehouse, sorting cherries and packaging them up so that I could earn money to pay towards school because I had put myself through private high school just to get ready for college and wanting to have a college experience. And at the time, my public school wasn't probably going to be the best way to do that. So that helped me really get through. And then I moved on to college at the University of Washington in Seattle. And I ended up applying to a really great program that I would encourage everyone to take a look into that has had their master's. It's the Presidential Management Fellowship. Yeah. And that helped me get into the federal government. I was already working in local government in King County for Washington State, but this opened a door for me into federal government that I don't know if it otherwise would have been opened. So I moved to DC about 7 years ago and now work in communications. I've worked as a spokesperson handling like really serious issues around sexual assault, suicides, casualties that happen in the battlefield, and was just recently a part of the COVID task force for the department where I helped really the communications process for getting people vaccinated and understanding the severity of the pandemic. And all while being in those spaces, I have yet to see many Latinos like me in those spaces. So as much as we can encourage our gente to not just be out there in the travels, but be out there in the workforce and in spaces that otherwise they wouldn't be, I'm a big advocate of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for helping all of us learn a little bit more about the risks of COVID and trying to get us to wash our hands and to get us to get vaccinated, because that definitely made a difference. The other thing that I was thinking, as a little girl growing up with your family, picking up asparagus, sorting out cherries in the facilities, would you imagine that 10, 15 years later, you would be the spokesperson for the Department of Defense, helping the whole nation wash their hands?
I mean, never. I think like my parents were the ones that picked asparagus out in the field, but then I moved up, if you will, to working in a warehouse, and even that already was like, okay, we're starting to move up in the agricultural world. And then to be now at the Pentagon, no, absolutely not. I think my parents sometimes they still don't understand what it is that I do. My grandma thinks I work in the White House, and that's okay. But no, it's a big orgullo for my family, and it's a lot of pressure. But I'm happy to be the one, to bring that to my family.
I think that's amazing. I think, thinking of all the hard work that they've put to support themselves and to support you and your siblings as well. I think it's an immense pride that they feel, and I think we feel as well, because it's a little win for everybody, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Danny? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am originally from Miami, Florida. The place where Vice City and the beaches and all that stuff. But trust me, my life was nothing like that. Even though we sell Miami as such, la cosa fue dura growing up. So my parents came over from Colombia. They were both undocumented, and that automatically is like you're already starting at the negative almost, right?
Yeah.
You're dealing with issues with poverty. You're dealing with issues of the stress of maybe the police stops you and they're going to catch your dad, right? Or there's going to be a nice raid. And it's just that fear really, really, really created a lot of stress in the family, right? My dad worked body shop work. My mom was the one that stayed at home and made sure that all three of us, because I have two younger siblings, made sure we did our homework. We went to school, no funny business, right? It's like we went to school and that was that. Given all the difficulties, though, I mean, to my parents' credit, we all got into college. I ended up going to the University of Virginia on a full academic scholarship. So then my sister, my brother got a partial scholarship. So, I mean, we all made it, right, in that respect. But I guess you realize afterwards, like, just because you made it to college doesn't mean automatically, todo se pone bien, no?
Yeah.
So, for my own personal experience, I wanted to go to UVA. I mean, apart from the full scholarship, right? I wanted to leave Miami. No, it's weird because, like, you would think like, oh, it in Miami, like everyone likes it there
it's
and everything.
Paradise,
it's like,
right? It's like everybody thinks it's paradise.
Exactly. It's like it's paradise. It's like, no, I mean, life was tough as it was already, and I didn't want to chill with the same people. So went to, University of Virginia in Charlottesville, Central Virginia, and that's where I ended up finding my Latinidad, which is really weird. Like, you're from Miami. That's like Latino Central. How the heck is it that you find yourself at UVA? It was because there was barely any of us. Whereas in Miami, todos están ahí from basically every part of the Caribbean and Latin America.
Yeah.
UVA, it's like, yo, where's everybody here? It's like we all barely even fit a room almost.
Yeah. I
entered UVA at a time when the Latino population there was starting to grow at the school, the Latino students. And so what you started seeing was a birth of Latino activism. I was very much part of the efforts to get Dreamers to be able to attend the University of Virginia. And this was during a Republican governorship as well. So like we were fighting not only just the school, but the school was having to fight and not really fight the government of Virginia to allow this to happen. And so on the academic and activism fronts, we were doing that. But then on the cultural front, I was also the DJ for the Latino parties. And trust me, if you would ask me like, oh yeah, you're going to DJ parties? Like, no, I wouldn't do that. But it was all fun. It was a lot of fun doing those parties, but it was more so a cultural expression, right? It was like, hey, we're here. Y'all ain't gonna stop us from going to college, and enjoy the party. Like, it was just that straightforward. It was very much as much a cultural presence as much as it was also political. The fact that we were able to do these parties after college, moved back to Miami. That part of that story of like, oh, just because you get a college degree doesn't mean you achieve immediate escape from poverty. Ended up starting my work in politics. I had already done that in Miami, but got involved with the President Obama's campaign in Miami. I ended up working 15 months in that campaign. Had done other minor campaigns, but this was like my first and only presidential campaign that I worked on for that long, at least. And so you learn a lot. You absolutely learn a lot, right? How to communicate with your community. How to connect with them, how to inspire people. Did that, and then it took me 2 years after that campaign to get to DC, because I thought, oh my God, DC is where I have to be, right? I want to do my career in politics and do that. Finally came here in 2014, so I was like 8 years ago. Funny enough, after 8 years of doing this type of work in the nonprofit space and in the civic engagement space, I'm good with not doing politics. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that for those of your listeners that want to be involved in politics and community organizing, you got to pace yourself. This work is a marathon, not a sprint. And you got to be in it for the right reasons. If you're going to be in it just because you want to be the senator, you're going to realize quickly that you got to get the love of the people. You got to get the support of the people first.
Right.
Para hacer eso. And it's not easy work. It's not easy. So you gotta have a lot in the tank emotionally and physically to be able to do that work. But all through these experiences, what I've learned is that, like Laurie said, Laurie approached and entered government through working in the ins and outs of government. I've mainly worked in the outside, looking in.
Yeah.
But what she said rings true. We need more of our people in government in general, right? In all spaces of leadership, right? Even in the nonprofit world, a lot of organizations, I think like over more than half, don't have people of color in their boards. They don't have them in their leadership. And that results in potentially negative consequences for our community, right?
Yeah.
In the simple area, voter engagement, civic engagement, organizations that are not led by BIPOC individuals are half as likely to encourage civic engagement work in their nonprofit, especially those that serve minority communities. So it's almost like we're holding ourselves back by not pushing ourselves to be in those spaces of decision making. So, it's important to be the leaders in government as much as it is all the way back home at the city council and at the nonprofit leadership and so on and so forth. So I think one of the very cool things about the two of us is that we are leaders in our space, and yet we realize that, hey, we're still kind of by ourselves a little bit. We need some help over here.
Right.
We can't carry the flag forever. We need everyone else to start coming up and demand to be leaders. And we're happy to open those doors for people.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I think about with the story that you're telling us, right, being involved in political campaigns and thinking about how Obama was able to build this coalition that everybody thought was going to be there for the next president from the Democratic Party. But in the most recent elections, Latinos haven't shown up for the Democratic Party like they showed up for Obama, for example. And I hear over and over with some of my friends who worked in the field, is like in Miami, for example, or in Florida, there's so many Latinos, right? But they still approach us as the Latinos that only care about one issue. They don't understand the differences within the Latino community. What's your perspective from being in the ground, actually doing that work? Like, how can whichever party, right, politicians in general, just try to understand our needs a little better?
In my experience working in the field, we need to stop depending on the political institutions to always know what's best for us. We need to tell them, and we need to force our way in to say, no, you need to do this for us. I mean, I don't know what thoughts you might have on that.
I mean, I think that the best way to make change is to show up and be at the table, be where the decisions are being made, collect allies while being an ally as well. I think that's going to be the best way to do so and provide that perspective. There's so many times that I have seen just taking a look around the room, and I'm either the only woman in the room, so that's already one, or maybe I'm not the only woman, but maybe I'm the only Latina, or maybe I'm the only person of color, or maybe I'm the only civilian in a room of military members, both men and women. That also adds a different perspective. Also, I'm for sure usually the only millennial in the room. And an older millennial at that, but still the age gap sometimes can be like 20 years or 15 years for myself and others. So showing up to those spaces, and I know that it's hard to get into those spaces. It's not easy to break into them at all, but we can't be afraid to ask for mentors to get into those spaces, or at least if our mentors are in those rooms, then to provide them the unique perspectives that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I may not always be in the decision rooms, I definitely have mentors that are, and I will check in with them and I will offer my perspective because I think that that's important for them to help carry the water, carry the message.
Absolutely. And you know, to bring it to a different area that we focused on, you know, with our travel. It's interesting because we do this on a professional basis, right? In our work in government and nonprofit. But when it comes to then travel, what we realized when we started the Latinos with Passports Instagram was that, wait a minute, I thought there was Latinos here already too. And we realized, oye, where's everybody? You know, where's everyone in terms of where's the Latinos? So then we started finding little by little, you know, okay, some Latinos are in this space. Some are doing great work in travel in general. But then what we realized for our specific niche is, yes, there's a lot of Latinos that are traveling or doing the aspirational stuff, but then they're not doing the travel hacking. And then I think that's one part of our Instagram and of our work that we've done for the past year and a half that we've began to break into this space of people thinking, oh, I can't do that business class travel because that's not for me, right? It's like, wait, why is it not for you? Oh, because that's only for rich people. Oh, that's only for businessmen, right? It's like, no, here, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how even in this space of travel is something that we do I mean, not really as a hobby, but as a side business, that even there we're finding the need to advocate for our community as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And like going back to, for example, like you guys finished your bachelor's degrees, both of you, and you worked really hard. You also finished master's degrees, both of you as well. And to do that, you actually had to get into debt, like many people in this country. But as a couple, though, you have worked together and supported each other to make significant strides towards paying your debt, the one that you had to incur to get ahead in life. And so I was wondering if you can tell us more about how you have supported each other to pay for your debt while still enjoying life, while still doing Latinos with Passports and traveling the world and showing people how to live a better life. And I was just wondering if you could share some tips and tricks of the things that you have done to make significant progress towards getting rid of that debt.
Yeah, I mean, I for sure was the one that brought the debt into the relationship. I already had it with me. It was from that cross-country move. The government did not provide a stipend to move me across the country. And I quickly realized that I'm living now in an area where my apartment costs twice the amount that it did before in Seattle. And Seattle's also a pretty high cost of living area, but DC was a lot more. And I wasn't familiar with the space. I just knew I needed to live as close to the Pentagon as possible. So that plus consumer debt, I think I was at about $23,000 in debt when Danny and I got engaged, and I knew that I needed to make a plan. I felt like it was my responsibility. It wasn't for Danny's, and I appreciated that he was going to work with me on how to tackle that down. So some of the ways that we quickly got into is I found a lot of personal finance educators on Instagram, and I really learned a lot from them. People like Save My Sense and Personal Finance Club. I learned how to break down debt into chunks that I could handle, where $23,000 didn't seem so much, but maybe a monthly payment of $500 was something that I could do.
Yeah.
And despite having a higher salary, it wasn't enough to pay rent and school loans and tackle this debt. So we opened up a credit card that
under my name,
under Danny's name, that would give us 0% interest for a year. And we thought, okay, that starts the clock. We have a year to pay this off.
Yeah.
And I supported that effort by getting a part-time job at one of my favorite kitchen stores. So I was able to pair up a passion of mine of cooking and kitchen stuff, plus the need to pay off debt. And I worked a part-time job to help tackle that as much as I could. I think every day after work, I would just head over and work this retail job. And then Danny helped me a lot by also taking on like DoorDash and tutoring.
Yeah. So then By doing all of that, not only were we paying down that debt, we were also saving and paying for our wedding that we were planning as well, and for our honeymoon. So it's one of these things where it's like, I understand the zeitgeist, right? The cultural moment that we're in, that for a lot of us millennials and Gen Zers, we're tired of this like world that we've been brought into that is really just all about work, 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 and not have fun. It's like, we gotta put in some work, unfortunately, until we figure out how to deconstruct all this. Yeah, we spend most of our engagement working hard and busting our chops to get all of this extra money to pay off this consumer debt. Yeah, we still had our student loans. We still have them, mind you. We still have them. But we put ourselves in a position where we said, we're going to pay off all this consumer debt of Laurie's while we're still paying my student debt, which I refinanced into a private one because that was a better decision for us, and still save enough money to pay for our wedding, which we did. We did all those things.
Yeah.
And we did it because for those of you looking to get married, the number one thing that destroys marriages is money issues. That's what the cura told us. El padre was like, hey, you know, what's the first thing? And we thought it was like infidelity, what were some of the other responses? Que se fue el otro, que si que cosa.
Que es muy macho.
Okay, muy macho, right. No, money. If the padre of a Catholic church tells us it's money, then that means it's money. I mean, there's something
the
going on.
The church knows about money, that's for sure.
Exactly. They know about money too. So, you know, our goal was to pay off this debt forward, but also that after the day of the wedding, we did not have a single bit of debt from the wedding. And fortunately, we were able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that money issues, I mean, aside from just having debt, when two people get together like that and decide, like, do we get a joint bank account or not? How do you split up paying the bills? Do we invest? Do you believe in saving? Right. Are you a big spender? What are the things that you absolutely must spend on versus, you know, maybe someone else is a lot more thrifty? And combining finances
is tough.
It's a huge thing. It requires so much trust.
Yeah.
And I think that when you come from not having a lot of money and you work so hard for it, y lo poquito que tienes, and now you got to just blindly share it with somebody and you just hope for the best. Like it's a lot. Yeah. It's not, I don't think it's something that we touch on too much now when couples get together.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why sometimes couples choose to keep their finances separate, which, I mean, whatever works for you at the end of the day, it's always around open communication, right?
Yeah, I think that's key, right? It's about communication, and it's about doing what works for you. For my husband and I, for example, we don't necessarily have joint bank accounts, but all our bills we pay them together, obviously, and we don't pay them 50-50. We pay them according to the salary that each one of us makes. And so it's, even if I make more money, for example, I would pay a higher share of that debt just because it's not fair to pay 50-50. At least that's our thought about it. But it's not based on traditions. It's based on something that actually makes sense for us.
It's la realidad. It's la realidad of the times. You know, Laurie's the one that makes more than I do. What we decided was I pay for the mortgage of the house because, you know, the money, just the way we get paid just sets it up that makes it easier for us, right? And so I think especially for the guys out there, you know, that are going through this transformation, it is true that a lot more women are gaining higher degrees and they seem to be having a better economic advancement. And that's great, right?
Go Poderosa.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't take that as, you know, let go of that machismo. Let go of that machismo, because honestly, I'm not afraid to share that reality in our household, because it helps demasculate esa idea que the man always has to make more money.
Yeah.
That might not always be the case.
Yeah.
That might not always be the case. But then what's important then is manage the money.
Yeah.
So it's less about you making more money than your partner. It's more about managing the money right.
Together.
Yeah, together. Absolutely. And I like that idea, like, because that brings a lot of pressure to men as well. It's like, you don't have to have the household on you. It's not on you. You're a partnership and you are together in this, and you can handle it that way.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that for a lot of men, a lot of Latino men, they might have learned the wrong lesson from from their fathers, is that they saw their fathers trying to do that responsibility, and just not the reality in our world today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that the other token of that is also for the ladies or the other partner, that we don't need to look for a partner that makes more than we do, or that's going to quote unquote take care of us.
Yeah.
We can also take care of ourselves, or we can be a contributing partner to things, and the relationship can still stay balanced. It really can.
Exactly. It's not one of those things that, because they used to tell us, you're going to intimidate men if you make more than them. No, screw that.
No, it makes their life better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of 2020, you started Latinos with Passports. Your slogan right now, I think, is Vamos Viajando, the world needs to see us. So tell me more about how Latinos with Passports was born and what you aim to achieve with this movement.
Yeah, so we created Latinos with Passports because we had already been sharing our personal travels through Laurie's account. But what we wanted to do was take it to that next level where, yes, there was Latinos showing their travels. Of course, there's Latino travelers, of course. But what we wanted to show was how to do that travel. It's not just about getting that picture in whatever beach that you're going to. It's, all right, what do you need to do from a financial aspect to then get you to that place? And not only to get you to that place, but let's have you fly business class. Let's have you stay on the nicest hotels possible. So we did that in our honeymoon. So for our honeymoon, as Laurie was focused on the wedding, and so was I, but I was planning the honeymoon too. What we did was, slowly but surely, we went from having a honeymoon that was just going to be to Bali to a around the world honeymoon where we went to Dubai, Singapore, then went back through Bangkok and Tokyo. And we did that by using the points and miles that we collected through the expenses that we had during our engagement, during the wedding expenses, the hotel points that we got because we had our wedding at a Marriott hotel, all of that together, the points and miles that we got from our spending that we were already doing saved us 75% off of our honeymoon trip. O sea, the trip that we had, retail value was about $20,000.
Yeah.
We only ended up paying $5,000 out of pocket for an around the world trip. And we were flying business class on Emirates Airlines and Japan Airlines, which you can look those up. Those are like fantastic business class products. So we had the lie flat seats. We were comfortable. We were sipping champagne in the air. We were staying at wonderful hotels throughout these 5 cities. In Bali, we stayed at a couple of resorts that we were just there chilling with the trees and whatnot all around. So that's what we wanted to show people.
Yeah.
You know, hey, Latinos, you can travel like that too. All right. It ain't just for some group of people. No, it's for you too. And that's what we didn't see in the Instagram and the travel community space was Latinos actively doing that on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I love that because it's one of those things in like it aligns with the podcast as well. We don't want to just show professionals who are Latinos in these spaces in the Department of Defense being the active person in communications, but we want to show people how they can get there, right? Because we don't have the generational wealth, but we also sometimes lack the generational knowledge, right? These white families who have been attending these spaces, they know the tricks, they know their friends, they ask their friends for internships for their kids. We don't have that. So at the very least, what we can do is share the tips that have helped us so that other people don't have to discover them on their own.
Exactly. That's why so much of our content is, for the most part, finance-based. So first of all, the credit cards are evil, right? Like that they're terrible for you and they're not good for you. No, we have to deconstruct that idea, right? I understand that in our nuestra cultura, we've been screwed over by financial institutions, by overt and subvert forms of discrimination, predatory loans. We've had bad experiences with the financial institutions in the U.S., right?
Yeah.
Totally understand that. My parents have gone through that same situation. But what we need to do is get away from those fears. Understand that those were things that unfortunately happened to us. And now we have to learn to beat those systems. Yeah. And that's really what this ends up with the travel hacking. Look, Latinos have been travel hacking. We're like the most travel hacking cultura among with our fellow BIPOC travelers. Okay. We try to find a way to save money, pack a cooler with sandwiches on a road trip or try to find the coupons to stay at the hotels. Man, we've been travel hacking all the time. It's just that now we need to take that concept of packing sandwiches in the car in the road trip to, yeah, let me go save me some $1,000 up to fly business class. That's the idea. It's like you can travel hack anything
and go to the lounge,
right? You can do that because we already are doing it. So it's also kind of, encouraging our people también, like, ya lo estás haciendo. It's just now let's get that concept of you saving money and let's apply it here so now you can get this.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about your movement is the fact that you're showing other Latinos what life could be like. You're showing us that, yes, we have to work hard, but we also deserve to rest and to enjoy life. And for me, most importantly, I think you're showing us that it requires a mindset change. Move away from the scarcity mindset that we're used to living in. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you have addressed that challenge?
We have two different perspectives here that we get to mesh together. I think for one perspective, I remember Miami when I was in my 20s. There was a music video that came out by Flo Rida, and he was like the first. What was it by? I forget the name of the song. Wild Ones. And the first scene of the music video was him jumping out of a plane in Dubai, and I was like, "Yo, that city looks so cool." They actually made like artificial islands in the form of a palm tree. I found that so fascinating, and I said to myself, like, if I could just go there once, just once in my life, wow, I would feel like achieved, right? And I didn't think much about it afterwards. Honeymoon, first stop, Dubai. And I was like, and we got there 2 days. And then I did feel that scarcity mindset because I was like, oh my God, I need to see this place because I don't know if I'm ever going to come back. Sure enough, we've already been there 2 times. We're going to go again this year. Entonces, como que this idea of like, we got to get away from living like that. Like, oh my God, we don't know if we're going to ever come here again because maybe we don't come back. But what's more important is for you to slow down and be present and really just look around and appreciate that A, you made it here, wherever that might be for you, and B, take in the memory. Maybe you don't come back, but that's okay because now you have a memory that's going to be with you forever. That money can't buy. And I still am trying to not be scarcity mindset in our travels, but I would say that was kind of like my biggest experience with that.
I think for helping that scarcity mindset kind of fizzle away is understanding that your vacation really starts when you walk out the door. That you are on full vacation mode, that you're supporting yourself to have the best opportunity possible. So maybe during vacations, the budget is a little bit looser. There's always an idea of how much is being spent. And for me, I really try to have to turn the volume down on that. Of how much is that dinner? How much is that bottle of wine? But then at the same time, am I ever going to have steak Florentine anywhere else other than Florence? No. So, so this is the time to do that. For me, it's a constant battle still. But even like Danny said, even if you maybe don't go back, knowing that you could if you wanted to, like there's so much power in that.
Yeah. And I think that's what Dubai represents for us, oddly enough, is the fact that that's the city we've been to the most since.
And I think it's also aside from like the mysticism of Dubai and how great it is, it's just that that's such a long flight to get there. And so
it costs money.
And it costs so much to get there that the fact that we have been there now almost 4 times in the last 3 years, like that's incredible for us.
Yeah. And this is part of what the travel hacking has allowed us to do, is to be able to pull off those types of trips. So instead of having to spend tens of thousands of dollars, you're only spending a couple thousand of dollars. And I know how, for some of your listeners, they might be like, oh my God, that's like even a privilege to be able to say that. Yeah, we understand that. We know that. Yeah. So, and then for those of your listeners that might be younger, in their 20s, just getting started. Okay, look, don't feel like you have to pressure yourself to make these trips happen right away. They probably can't. You need to build yourself up. And I think that's the story here is it's going to take time to build yourself up. Get that emergency fund secured first. Get your 401k going. Get all of these other little points together because then you start realizing you're building your base. Now you get to build the next base. If you decide to get married, that's going to help you immensely. I mean, that's just a reality. In our case, that's worked for us as a positive. But even if you do it by yourself, right, you got to realize you got to build the foundation first in order for you to then be able to enjoy these types of business class trips. I mean, yeah, there would have been no way for me to enjoy it in my 20s. Having said that, I wish I would have been more knowledgeable. I would have probably flown for Spirit to some other places. I would have been in my 20s, right? I could have handled that. I could have done that.
Yeah.
But I was so scarcity mindset, and unfortunately, the situation that I was in, that I didn't even treat myself to that. Y también, all of us know this guilt, right? Oh, vas a ir a ese lugar y no vas a visitar a la familia. You ain't gonna go see your mamá. Oh, no. So you got to get out of that guilt trip. It's like, look, grandma, I will see you, but first I need to go to Barbados. And I really wish I would have done that more. For those of you going to college, please sign up for study abroad. Especially in my case, that my school was paying for my entire thing. I only went to study abroad once for a 2-week term. I should have gone abroad every year. And I didn't do that. And I really regret that. So, like, you know, even if you're not even in college yet, start thinking about how you can travel hack. That's like an ultimate travel hack. Get your school to pay for it and go to Barcelona, go to Tokyo, go wherever you want to go and study abroad and learn, because that is the perfect opportunity to do it. Then build yourself up, and then if you get married or you go solo, you're gonna be able to have all these amazing trips. Yeah, because then at least you're gonna be in the financial position to be able to afford it.
And I think what I love about this is that no matter at what stage in your life you are, you can think about what you need to do to prepare yourself to get to that next level. And when you are at that next level, then work on addressing your scarcity mindset. I felt so related when you talk about how Latinos have been travel hacking from the beginning of times, you know, even by just making our sandwiches to go to the beach. And like for me, I did study abroad. I went to Vienna to study abroad. And while I went to visit my friends that went to school with Ty and I in Swaziland. And so I saved a lot of money because I went to places and I stayed with my friends, right? Yeah. And I traveled in the cheapest trains that I could find just to get to many places. And I saw a lot of Europe that way. And now I'm still stuck in that reality or in that experience of like going to places and staying with my friends where I could probably pay for a hotel room, you know, but I'm still stuck there.
Yeah. I think sometimes even with us, I think I'm definitely more of the explorer type. I'm like willing to get in, you know, into like any historical place or any alleyway, while Laurie's more like, yo, just keep me at the pool, you know, at the hotel, and I'm just gonna relax here and chill. So even with us, we've had to also learn how to travel together. Be able to push, you know, enjoy the pool more, right? And then Laurie enjoy the museum more, right? Like, you know, balance. Everything's about balance. But I think that's part of the building the foundation, right? Maybe in your 20s, you're doing the hostel life, you know, you're chilling with your friends and everything. And then when you get to your 30s, you get a little bit more money in your pocket. All right, treat yourself a little bit. And then 40s, 50s, right? And that's the thing, though. Travel now while you're young. And we feel old saying this, or at least I'm feeling old saying this, and we're in our 30s. It's like, no, travel while you're young, because it is true. There's this meme, I don't know if you've seen it, of these two old people that have fallen asleep on a gondola in Venice. And it's like, yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to work your whole life. Because supuestamente la idea, work your whole life, retire at 65, and then what? You only got 10 years left. 20 years maybe.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, you can't go travel like that. You got to go travel now when you got the legs, when you got the patience, you know, to be able to deal with the cancellations and then this and that, and be able to enjoy the sun. You got to be able to travel now. And so that's why we got to do this now. As we're paying the student loans, as we're being financially responsible, as we're building for our retirement, got to travel now.
Yeah. Danny just killed us all at 70.
Yeah, right. No, I did do that.
Another thing that I really love about your movement is that, and one of your other, phrases is reclaiming the first in first class flights, lounges, and top tier hotels. And when I read that, I loved it because I feel like, especially me, in the few opportunities where I have got bumped into first class, I feel like that was the gift, and I should be humble, right? And like not ask for more because I was already given something. But you guys challenge that mentality. It's almost like if we experience the imposter syndrome of traveling, you know, and what you're saying is, you're working really hard to get there, even though the term hacking makes it seem like you're playing the system to get there. But you're saying when you get there, enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that that piece that we've had of reclaiming the first and first class flights and lounges and top tier hotels, because often many of us can relate to being the first gen high school graduate, first gen college graduate, first gen this, first gen that, that it's like, you know what, let's flip that on its head of what else we're the first in, and let's claim that as a positivity. Yeah. I definitely can relate to the imposter syndrome, and more so in the US when boarding a flight, in even if it's in priority line or in a lounge, you almost sometimes feel like any minute is somebody going to ask, do you belong there? Are you lost? Are you confused? Mm-hmm. Because the idea of seeing somebody that looks like us in those spaces is mind-blowing. And when we are traveling abroad, we definitely don't feel that. I would say the times that we have flown Emirates definitely do not. It is one of the most welcoming airlines that even if they know it's your first time flying with them, they see that as an opportunity to show their very best to you so that you will fly back with them. And it just, whoever can, like, experience it at least once in your life.
Yeah, I would say that, to hell with that. Right? This the East Coast Miami side coming out at me. It's like, no, to hell with that imposter syndrome. Like, you got to own the space. I think there was a cool quote that Steve Harvey said about first class travel, in that he said, when you walk past first class, I'm paraphrasing here, when you walk past first class, it's very hard to not want to be there. And when you sit in a first class seat, it's very hard for you to say, oh, I'm never going to fly first class again. It's very hard for you to say that. So you got to switch the mentality. You got to switch to, how can I get back to that seat again and again and again, right? Now, in our travel hacking stuff, we say, well, sure, travel first class a couple of times in your life, try it out, but business class is your best sweet spot, right? Because you still get amazing food, all is good, right? But the idea of what Steve Harvey was trying to say there was, change your mentality to, what do I have to do to get that? And that is going to start knocking off this imposter syndrome, because when you do finally get into that business class or first class seat, you're going to be like, I work for this.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no imposter anything. And yeah, you might get a look or two, maybe here more so in the US. We never had anyone while we were flying Emirates or Etihad or Japan Airlines ever question us. Like, not even the passenger, like nobody. Because at that point, it's like, you're obviously here because you did something to get you here. You didn't cheat no system. You didn't do anything wrong. You're there. Right. You worked your butt off for it. So that's the mentality switch for those of y'all listening. Like, that's what you got to think.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Remember that your dollar has the exact same value as everybody else's. Mm-hmm. It is not a difference of like, your dollar is worth 92 cents or 89 cents. No, it is worth $1. Yeah. And companies are going to accept it for its same value the same way.
Yeah. I love that. I really do. And so as part of your movement, you also do consultation, one-on-one consultations with people that want to learn about travel hacking. What are like top 3 pieces of advice that you give to the people that are just getting started?
So for those of you, go ahead and visit our website, latinoswithpassports.com, and you can sign up for one of our free consultations there. It's 30 minutes. And what we tell folks ahead of time is, please make sure you tell us like where you want to go. Because the first question that we get, and trust us, if we could get $1 for every time we get asked this question, we've had a lot of money right now, is what's the best credit card out there? And the answer is, there is no best credit card out there. It really is what credit card works for you. But before we even get to that question or to that answer, where are you going? Because that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that if you don't know where you're going, then you might be spending your hard-earned money to earning points that might not work for you. And that's what people don't understand. They think all points and miles are the same. It's like, no. They're not all the same. They all have different values. We don't really tend to focus more on the value, but more so on utility. If you're getting, let's say as an example, if you have an American Airlines credit card and you're collecting American Airlines miles, but you want to go to a place where American Airlines nor any of its partners flies to, then you're earning miles that don't work for you. So that's why we ask people, first off, know where you want to go. And this might be some place that you want to go in 6 months and 12 months. And that's also important to know because then you need to plan this out. Then the next point, you got to have a budget. Okay. You got to check your expenses. Why? Because not all credit cards are the same. Some credit cards offer a bonus on the food, on the amount of food you spend. Some on travel, some on gas, some on everything else. So if you don't know what you're spending on, you might not be maximizing the dollar that you're spending. There's the shopping portals, right? As opposed to you going to the store and giving them the $10, right, to the store, you get nothing back, right? If you use a cash back, you at least get something back, right? If you use a miles credit card, you get some back in miles, right?
Yeah.
But if you use a shopping portal, on an online shopping portal, you get to swipe your card and earn 5 miles more or 10 times miles more per the dollar you spend. So it's all about changing the way you spend your money and how you maximize every single dollar that you spend. And then finally, which goes to the third point, don't overspend. Okay? We're not telling you got to, go into debt to get these miles. No, because then what's the point? You might as well have bought the ticket right off the bat and go into debt.
Or that you have to get XYZ credit cards. Like sometimes people will see that a travel hacker has anywhere from 10 to 17 credit cards. And we show them that we go where we go with just a few. And then that just blows their mind completely.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see the credit cards as a tool to help you get to your goal, being where you want to travel.
Right. And I love that you guys are realistic about it. The first thing is have a budget and know how you're going to pay that credit card back, because we are already forced to go into debt in so many other areas. This is not an area where we need to go into debt for.
Absolutely not. And I think that's why for us, when we started Latinos with Passports, one of the first things we thought about is how are we going to give back? Aside from providing that personal finance education by just showing what works for us and reminding people, hey, have a budget, hey, pay your debt, but that we were going to offer these free consultations because it's our way of giving back. We definitely see other people in the travel space that charge for these consultations, but we thought for our gente, it's going to be free. If that is our way to give back and support them with booking their trip of a lifetime or understanding how credit cards work, because sometimes it's a very basic understanding of how to use your credit card and maybe not even knowing that these shopping portals or something exist, especially nowadays with online shopping. It's a great time to understand how that works. Or dining, that just making our dollar stretch 2-3 times more is so important. Our gente already know how to do that. So if we can help them find a way to get 2-3 times back, then I feel like we've done our part, and I feel like we're helping change that narrative that Latinos don't travel or Latinos are not in business or first class or in lounges, etc., or that they're not world travelers, and they very much are.
Absolutely. And so one of the most recent projects is your Copa Travelers group, right?
Yeah.
FIFA announced that in, 2026, the World Cup is going to be in the northern countries in the Americas. Yeah. And you guys are preparing for that already ahead of time. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the idea came from us creating a travel guide for those that were going to go to Qatar. But then what we realized was that not a lot of fans were going to go to Qatar. So instead, we switched the project to, hey, well, we're already going to have the World Cup here in the U.S., Mexico, Canada in 2026. We live here. We have friends that live all across the country. So why not create a community and a group of soccer fans, of travelers in the U.S. and in Mexico, Canada, that are going to want information on how to travel and how to save money on the travels for the World Cup. This World Cup that's coming up is going to be the biggest sporting event in human history. 48 teams from across the world are going to be here, meaning millions upon millions of fans. The highest attendance recorded at a FIFA World Cup was back in 1994. Guess who hosted the 1994 World Cup? We did, France. The U.S.
What?
1994. And it was the highest attended. And that's when America supposedly didn't give a crap about soccer. Now we really care about soccer. So that means you're going to have millions and millions and millions of people coming to the U.S. in that summer of 2026. Meaning the price of flights, para arriba. Price of hotels, para arriba. car rentals, para arriba, train, para arriba. Everything's going to go up because FIFA is going to want to make their money, and so is everyone else. So the idea behind this group is let's start planning out your trip now because we already know the cities. We already know the cities where the World Cup's going to be played at. Okay, we don't know where your team is going to play. Fine, right? We won't know that. But at least let's get you started, first of all, on how to budget, how to figure out this whole credit card landscape, right? And then starting in 2023, we're going to have a Patreon community where every month we're going to learn, okay, these are the airlines that fly between these cities. These are the trains that you can use. This is the buses, the car rentals, and then start figuring out which credit cards you should start getting those points and miles from so that in 2-3 years time, right? Because we have to think about it, 2023, 2024, and 2025 is usually when the World Cup is, we know the teams that are going to participate. That's the time to start booking your travel. So in reality, we have 3 years to go. And in short time, it's going to be 2 years. And in short time, it's going to be 1 year. And so let's start getting everyone together, organized, and figuring out what credit cards you need, what savings, because for some people, they're not going to want to go anywhere but their home city. Say they live in Dallas and they're just, I want to go for the World Cup final. So that's the whole purpose of the Copa Travelers, is to help soccer fans and travel fans save money, because that is going to be one expensive tournament, to say the least.
Wow. I mean, I'm excited already. And I know that, for example, my sister actually lives in Australia, and I can tell that she probably will want to come to visit me in the strategic time in 2026 in order to take advantage of that, right?
Exactly. And that's what's going to happen. You're going to have a lot of people, hey, can we crash at your place? We're probably going to have a bunch of people requesting to crash at our place here in DC. But that's the whole point, right? Teach folks, hey, what do I need to do now to be ready in 2-3 years time, to then, when I know that my team made it, I'm going to start booking, to these places. Let me start booking those flights a year ahead of time, the hotels a year ahead of time. For those that might not understand how this looks, look at the Super Bowl, right? The last Super Bowl happened in LA. If you remember the news stories, remember that the flights from Cincinnati to LA went up from, I think it was $300 to $2,000 because of the demand. Okay, it's all supply and demand. It's really nothing that complicated. So if you start paying attention to that, for those of you out there, pay attention to the next couple sporting events that is hosted in the U.S., especially the Super Bowl, and you're going to see what we're talking about. The price of the flights, hotels, de todo sube. Multiply that by the 16 cities, and that's why we want to create this group.
We're going to join you, and we're going to learn with you and see how we're going to travel hack our way to 2026.
Awesome, yeah.
And so just the last question to close off this interview. It has been amazing. But we always close it with the same question, and I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. So imagine a friend of yours is going to visit you in DC or whatever city you want to highlight, and they want you to show them around as locals in the city, but you're in Abu Dhabi having fun, right? So you tell them, hey, these are the top 3 places to go or things to do in order to enjoy the city from a local's point of view. What would you tell them?
Okay, so best places to go in DC. DMV is what we would say, the District, Maryland, Virginia area. So the first part, go to a Virginia winery. Here in Virginia, there's some lovely, lovely wineries. Go drink some wonderful Virginia wine. Have a charcuterie board while you're at it.
Use our membership if you want. We became members at a winery, also talking about being in spaces that you may not normally be in. But we joined a wine club and have access to their wine room and are part of that space.
Yeah. The second, visit the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Granted, all of the museums at the Smithsonian, which is not a museum itself, the Smithsonian is a collection of museums of art, history, and culture. But the one of the African American history is it is eye-opening, and it's free. Go there because we can all use some understanding of African American history, especially as us Latinos, where perhaps our history and our experience was come here and work, and we maybe did interact with the African American community. Go and learn their history, because they have had a complicated history in this country, but it's also been a history of resilience and of strength and of empowerment and of success, more than anything, of success. And so go visit there. It's going to be an eye-opening experience for you. And then finally, to stay in the area, explore the monuments, but at night. Not only because it's going to be less hot, there's going to be less people, but these monuments just take a different feel at night.
It's like they come alive.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. And so, like, for example, the Korean Memorial, the Korean War Memorial, when you walk through it at night, it's a little spooky because the way that they created it was that the soldiers are highlighted with lights in a way that it makes you feel like you're actually walking through a battlefield in Korea. The Lincoln Memorial, massive, the lights beaming where Abe Lincoln is sitting, and you're just like, wow, this is a historic city. So definitely check out the monuments at night. You're gonna have a very different appreciation for the capital city of the United States.
Well, Laurie and Danny, thank you so much for joining us in the podcast today.
Thank you.
Thank
really
you so much
appreciate
for
it.
having us.
Thank you for listening. If you want to put a face to the voices you just heard, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at LatinX Can. If you have questions or feedback, you can email us at latinxcan@gmail.com. And if you want to support our project, please leave a review. We have made it easy for you and added the links to the show notes. That's it for now. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and remember, unidos somos más.